How are you, everyone? Welcome to our Data Protection in Practice webinar for May. May we all please start by just writing the country that you're joining us from, so that we can just get started to for this webinar. Thank you. Okay, I see so many countries: Nigeria, UK, Zimbabwe. Okay, Nigeria. Okay, keep them coming. Seems like we do have many people. Malawi. It seems like we have got so many people joining us today, and that's great. And for today, I just want to say that transformation begins with a conversation, and trust is built on transition. Today, we want to bridge the gap between regulation and practice, and we are going to be bringing together the Africa's leading data protection or regulators for a practical, candid discussion focused on what matters the most to those on the front lines, the data protection officers. Whether you're just starting out or you're already navigating compliance, the decision is for you, and I'll encourage you to buckle up and let us get started. So to introduce our panelists today, I'll start by a person very dear to me, who also happens to be my boss, is Tsitsi Mariwo, who is the inaugural director of the Data Protection Authority from Zimbabwe, and we was also in charge of the DPO certification and regulatory framework. I'll move on to Daniel Chuoni. He is from Malawi. He is the head of data protection in Malawi under the legal and ICT, and also a legal and ICT expert overseeing Malawi's data protection compliance landscape. I'll quickly move on to my learned sister, Adama Ismade. She is from Nigeria. She is the head of legal unit under the Nigerian Data Protection Commission, who is instrumental in drafting Nigeria's Data Protection Act and champions sector-wide compliance. And last, but certainly not the least, I'll also move on to my sister from the Kingdom of Eswatini, Lindo, who is a DPO in the advocacy and compliance, who is driving registration, enforcement, and sector-specific guidance in Eswatini. Gentlemen and ladies, you are welcome on stage. I'll just give you just a minute to say something before we quickly dive into the questions that we have for the day. I'll start with Daniel so that I can be biased. Since there are three ladies, it seems like we are overpowered. Daniel, so I'll just say Daniel, just say something. Just say one word before we start getting into the seminar in just under a minute.
All right. Thank you so much, Allan. My name is Daniel Chwani from Malawi, the Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority, which is the designated data protection authority here in Malawi. I'm pretty honored to be part of this panel. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'll move on to Adama.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, really good evening, wherever you may be. It's good to have African DPOs together in a network and us talking to each other and talking about the peculiarities of Africa. So good to be here.
Okay, sure. Linda.
Everyone. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be part of this panel discussion today. We are so excited to be part of this panel discussion. We hope that you're going to learn, and we hope that we're going to learn from you as well. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. And then Tsitsi.
Good afternoon, everyone. From Zimbabwe, we are also excited to be part of this panel to share our insights, perspectives, and experience insofar as implementation of data protection is concerned. And good to hear from Adama, particularly after the warm welcome and hospitality we received from Nigeria last week when you hosted the Network of African Data Protection Authorities. That was amazing. Nigeria, you outdid yourselves and you did Africa proud. And indeed, Amaka, together with DPO Africa Network, I can see that Africa is rising insofar as data protection issues are concerned. Thank you.
All right, that's very fine. So we want, as we're introducing the panelists, I wanted us to just do a poll where I'm just going to the question that are going to a poll is going to pop up right now in the chat box, and then I want you to vote into the poll. And as we are going on with our conversation, so obviously there's going to be a question that says, "What is the biggest challenge you face in your a data protection role?" And then you're just going to click up, and then you pick up the one you think is the biggest challenge, and then obviously we'll bring to you the results as we go ahead with our conversation. But anyway, for now, I would want to quickly start with the first question, which I will direct to Tsitsi under the theme that Zimbabwe, as some of you might already know, or so for those who don't know, that Zimbabwe has pioneered a DPO certification in the capacity building course. So maybe the question to you, Titi, is that what skills and knowledge are most essential for a DPO today, for those who are in practice, and how can they stay ahead of the regulatory challenge? I'm sure you know that we are now having a moving regulatory landscape other than previously where we had something that was static. So take it away and on that one.
Okay, thank you very much. And indeed, I think we were second in Africa, second from Ghana, in terms of coming up with a homegrown data protection officer certification course in Zimbabwe. And with that certification course, I think it was after a realization that we didn't have a critical mass of trained data protection officers who could then implement the Cyber and Data Protection Act. So it was an intervention from the regulatory authority to ensure that we build that critical mass that will definitely roll out the implementation, because the regulator alone will not be able to implement. We needed these data protection officers to actually be on board, and then we encourage and support them through the journey of coming up with data protection policies and practices within the different organizations in Zimbabwe. And in terms of skills, coming to your question, I think for a data protection officer to be successful in their role, they definitely first and foremost need to understand the data protection laws that pertain to their jurisdiction, but also appreciate and understand other data protection laws of the other countries. So knowledge of privacy, knowledge of data protection law is something that is critical. You cannot run away from that as a data protection officer. And because this is a multifaceted role that you are playing, you need a set of, diverse skills to be able to implement this particular role. And one of the key skills that we have always been talking to data protection officers in Zimbabwe is that you certainly need to be a very good communicator within the organization. Otherwise, you will not be able to communicate across the organization with different departments, because you play a strategic role within the organization to make sure that you bring on board the different departments in terms of dealing or assisting them with compliance in their different roles with data protection. So the communication role is not just for purposes of you being able to communicate across the organization, but also to ensure or to make sure that you dissect the critical concepts around data protection. Otherwise, no one in the organization will take you seriously if you don't know what you are saying. So you need to be capacitated with the laws and the requirements of the law that your organization is supposed to comply with, but be able to communicate that message to the senior management, to your board, as well as the rest of the organization. Over and above those communication skills on complex concepts like data protection, this is a new field. So you need to find a strategy of dissecting the issues so that you are understood. You definitely, of course, need to be very optimistic in the face of challenges, because as you try to introduce this new concept in the different organizations, particularly on the Zimbabwean landscape, you're going to face a lot of challenges. Some people may think it's not an important issue within the organization, and also senior management as well as your board may not think it's a critical issue, but you need to be able to be still optimistic in the face of the different challenges, and continue with that role that you are supposed to play when you are designated or appointed as the data protection officer within the institution. Critical to this role also is the ability to train others, because you will be required to train in terms of at least the Cyber and Data Protection Act in Zimbabwe. One of your responsibilities is to be able to train other staff members within your organization. And when you do that, you certainly need to have the training skills to be able to deliver in terms of the training that you need to do as well. And to train others, you need to continuously learn. So you must be someone who is ready to learn all the time to make sure that you are abreast with the new developments, because data protection is an evolving space where you have to constantly learn new things and update your policies, update your procedures, update the practices within your particular organization. And also, analytical skills are very critical. You are going to be responsible for analyzing the different risks that are within the organization, the data flows within the different departments, because you are the one who is going to assist the organization with coming up with that data inventory, do the gap analysis, look at your compliance management framework. So you need those analytical skills to be able to do that as you do your evaluation of the different risks pertaining to different projects within the organization, which risks or which projects really do I need to focus on in terms of data protection impact assessment. So all that requires that skill, that requires that you are analytical in your approach or as you deliver on this particular role. Paying particular attention to detail is also critical, because you are mapping the data within the organization and understanding where the risks are. So if you don't pay attention to detail, you're going to miss critical issues, and you're going to miss critical flows that may require your attention. And don't forget that you're going to be negotiating new contracts or new clauses on data protection with your vendors, with other departments, or with your service providers within the organization. So negotiation skills are also very critical, and be able to do collaboration within the organization as a data protection officer. You need to be agile in your approach, because we're looking at different issues. This is a topic that is going to be discussed later on, about what you need to focus on in the era of AI as a DPO. So if you are stuck in your paper approach, or you're stuck in your traditional approach, you'll not be able to sail through in this particular role. Ethics are also very, very critical for the role of a data protection officer. You need to be very strong in terms of your ethical approach to issues. And I'm glad that in Zimbabwe, we now have the Association of Data Protection Officers, which just started. They launched, I think, a month or so ago. And we are hoping as the regulator, because we can't do everything, we are hoping also as the regulator that they would try to build that culture of making sure that we have ethical and professional data protection officers within the country. So management skills are key. You're going to be given a budget to look at as you implement this particular role as a data protection officer, and you need to be able to manage not just your budget, but also in terms of how you're going to deal with aspects to do incidents response planning. So there's a lot of planning that is involved, and the management skills are going to be very critical. And with some big organizations, you may not just be a single DPO in that institution. It could be a whole department that is responsible for data management. And as the chief data privacy officer, you'll be managing a team of data protection officers. So management skills are also something that is very key. And don't forget that because you interface a lot with cybersecurity issues, a basic understanding of cybersecurity issues is also something that is very critical for this particular role. And it's something that you need to work on, build your capacity around basic cybersecurity concepts and issues. I know that you will be complementing each other with the chief technology officer within the organization, which also speaks to aspects of collaboration and being able to negotiate your space as a data protection officer. And I think you need to be a very strong person, a strong-willed person, and indicate to the organization that this is now a compliance issue, and if we don't comply, these are the consequences. And if you shouldn't be scared to speak truth to power as a data protection officer. So I would say these are some of the critical skills. This is some of the information that you need to know as a data protection officer when it comes to the relevant skills, the knowledge that you need to have to be able to effectively deliver on this particular role. I will end there for now, Amaka, as well as our moderator, Komborerai Manenji, in terms of the skills that we are looking for in data protection officer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a very profound answer to the question that you just gave. And maybe I just want to quickly cross over to Daniel and just say, Daniel, you understood what Tsitsi was saying about the skills that you need, to be able to be an effective DPO. And I understand that you are yourself a DPO as well as the head of the regulatory authority in Malawi. And just to say that, what are the most common challenges that DPOs in Malawi are faced when they're interpreting or are trying to apply the national data protection laws in your country? You can just shed light and building on to what she was just talking about, what you need to do to be effective. So now we want to learn from your experience as a regulator and as a DPO yourself. What are the challenges that these are facing in trying to interpret the laws or just trying to carry out their task? Over to you, Daniel.
Yes, thank you, Kombo. And perhaps I'll just start by providing a background in terms of the Data Protection Authority here in Malawi. So we are a very new regulator. We are about 3 months old now, but we have had extensive engagement with the industry, prospective data protection officers, and we have been able to appreciate the challenges which they are facing, and some anticipate that they will face. So currently, the biggest issue is that data protection here in Malawi is quite a new issue. Our data protection law was only enacted last year in 2024, and it is this year that we have started to implement and enforce the law. So the biggest issue is limited awareness and understanding of the law. This is a new framework, and the data protection officer that we have are interfacing it for the first time. So these are issues that they have to learn and be familiar with and master them. And the other issue is the lack of training on the part of the DPOs. Because, as I said, this is a new issue, and they are learning for the first time. And as a regulator, what we have done is to emphasize on the training aspect. So for the past 3 months, this is what we've been doing, sensitizing our data controllers and our data processors on the principles and the concepts that in our data protection law, so that they can be familiar, because you cannot have compliance without being familiar with what the law is asking you or requiring you to do. The other issue, again, I think touching on the interpretation and application of the law, is that is the absence of guidance tools or guidance documents that may guide in terms of compliance. So it's also an issue that, as a regulator, we are looking at. We're developing guidelines, manuals, compliance checklists, so that the data protection officers can use those to assist their organizations to comply with the law. Then another big issue, which I think is cuts across, I think, many African jurisdictions, is the issue of resource constraints. As I said, data protection is quite a new thing, and for organizations to be compliant, there is need for resources to be mobilized, resources in terms of personnel, that is personnel that is knowledgeable on issues of data protection, and also limited budgets. So the issue is we have to prioritize the resources that are available to look at the business as a going concern, and also compliance with the data protection laws. Then the issue of organizational culture. Some institutions may not treat this as a very big issue, but data protection now it touches on all facets of life. So it's an issue that we cannot run away from. We just have to align ourselves and align our compliance culture to the issues of data protection. So, Kombo, those are the major issues that we have identified so far in our new path in data protection. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel. I think you do raise very, very critical critical challenges that I think are almost similar to all the DPOs that are practicing across Africa. And I think it would be good as well, as on top of what you've just said, that at the end of the session, we're going to be, there's a QR code that's going around. We are carrying out a survey, and would also want to hear from the other members in the audience on what they perceive to be the challenges faced or the way they do in the survey. And just to quickly check with Adama and Dilindo, from what she was saying, she talked about what you need to have or what you need to possess to be an effective DPO. Then Daniel came in and talked about the challenges, lack of training, those constraints, and it's a new area for many people. So maybe are there any similar trends that you are picking from your jurisdictions? Adama, in a minute, and then I know you're a lawyer, and lawyers we like to talk, myself included, and Lindo also just came in a minute just to talk. Is there anything similar that you've picked up from what Tsitsi and Daniel were speaking before we quickly cross over to the next set of questions for you guys? Over to you,
Okay.
Adama.
Yes, good afternoon. So they basically said everything because in Africa, I think that we have a common issue. So whether it's the skill gap or whether there are challenges that people face while implementing and trying to comply with the data protection laws, I think it's the same across board. But one thing I would actually like to highlight is for DPOs, one of the challenges or one of the skills they actually need to handle and be very good at is the skill of handling data breaches. And this is one issue that we see across board. So it's a very good skill to have because we always know that no system is infallible. So if that is in mind and you know that these breaches must occur, you must learn how to handle these breaches calmly, knowing the set of people that you need to talk to. And Sisi talked about incident response management and planning. So this is a very good skill that DPOs ought to have. Another skill that I'll just touch on, because basically Sisi and Daniel have said everything, is the concerns as to leadership and regulations. Now, why I'm talking about this is because as DPOs, I know Sisi said, you have to be strong-willed to be able to exert what you want to say. But remember that the DPO, it will, in normal laws or in ordinary laws, data protection laws, you kind of report to maybe the management. However, you do not make decisions. So you need to be able to learn how to navigate those complex C-suite leadership skills. Do you understand? So you can't just come up and say, no, because I'm the DPO, this is this, this is that. You need to be able to navigate that space. And then you need to be able to identify who can talk for you at that level. Because if you're not able to do that, you will not necessarily get the desired effect or change that you need. So that's basically what I want to add to what has been said.
Okay, thank you very much, Adama. And quickly switching over to Lindo, did you pick up something that you just want to say about the kingdom of Eswatini or generally in your experience as a DPO?
Thank you so much, Combo. So basically, Eswatini actually faces similar challenges with the other authorities. So one of the key things that we've actually seen all over Eswatini as well is that when we issued the directive on the appointment of data protection officers, one of the key things that we noted from there is that when these organizations actually appoint the data protection officers, they just appoint for the sake of appointing, but then there is no link with regards to the regulatory, what is it called? Oh, the guidelines were actually issued. So most of the time, what we're actually seeing is that because data protection is actually new, everyone doesn't know where to start with regards to the implementation of the act. So one of the key things that we saw with regards to the appointment of data protection officers is that there isn't anyone who really knows what to do with regards to that. And then there wouldn't be the independence, which is the first one. The second one is that there would be the conflict of interest on the data protection officer that is actually appointed, as well as some organizations don't actually appoint the data protection that has the highest authority. So if you do not have the highest authority in the organization, then you will not be able to make key decisions. So because some of the organization even lack the resources with regards to the appointment of data protection officer or even compliance with the act, then they don't even have the training with regards to the data protection officers. So those are the key challenges we've actually seen.
Thank you very much, Lindo. I mean, I appreciate. I mean, the issue of people appointing someone at the grassroots to be the DPO who might not be able to really make an impact, or rather be able to communicate with the highest authority in an organization is, I think, very common across all the institutions. So maybe to the audience, if you might have a question from what has been said so far, please just type your questions in the chat because we'll do a Q&A at the end of the session. So for now, we're just using against time. But let me just also come back to Adama and say, as someone overseeing legal compliance across Nigeria, what are the top compliance pitfalls that you see among DPOs, and how can they avoid them? And like I'm saying, I'm just focusing on time because we've got a lot of questions to ask. So just quickly address us on that. And Lindo, please
Yes,
be
I
back.
can address this in 2 minutes. One of the first common pitfalls that we see is the fact that DPOs don't thoroughly read the documents that are available to them. And this is because, once you hear principles of data protection, you hear lawful basis, you think you're all set. But there are nuances to various data protection laws. And when you're going, and especially when you're a DPO for an international organization or an organization that cuts across various countries or various jurisdictions, you need to be able to understand particular laws that guide, what you're doing. I'll give us a very good example. So you have some data protection laws that tell you that you should report cases of data breaches within a timeline, maybe some 72, some 24. And because you're working across various jurisdictions, you will just probably pick, maybe because it happened, the data breach happened in one particular country, let's say Nigeria, you just pick the 72 hours. Meanwhile, you're also operating in jurisdictions that have lesser time, for reporting these data breaches. So you need to be able to be very seized of the laws or data protection laws across various jurisdictions. And another thing that are common pitfalls that DPOs always fall into is that they like working in silos, especially if they are lawyers. So I know I'm a lawyer. We are the connoisseurs of knowledge, so we just think that everything rises and falls with us. But when you're talking about data protection, it's way beyond the letters of the act. You're going to be looking at things like you have to work with people in the cybersecurity space, in the IT department. You need to be able to have their buy-in, even from the senior management. So it's not just data protection is not what just you do as as an officer. It's what the organization does. So it's things that you have to work with these people. One other thing that we see that are common pitfalls for DPOs basically is poor vendor and third-party management. So because you just hear, okay, I'm the DPO for my organization, and my organization is, say, the data controller, and you're all well and good. You tick all the boxes. I have my privacy policy. I have this. I have that, and I have that. But you fail to realize that you actually work with other people, and these third parties, or this third party management and vendor management is very crucial, because remember that a law like Nigerian law tells you that the same obligations that lie for data controllers also lie for data processors. So if they are negligent on their part, it will actually affect you, as a data controller or as an organization. So DPOs ought to know that while they are going to be carrying out due diligence for their own organizations, they also need to carry it for the organizations that they work with or that work for them. And one other thing is inadequate ROPA. This is the records of processing activities. So we find out a lot of times that, when they come in, maybe because of investigations, maybe there's a breach or something happens, and we ask them questions, and they'll say, we've done it. Oh, we've done it. Okay, so provide records, and there's no record, and they just feel because they've done it in their head and they've implemented it, but there is no adequate documentation. So DPOs ought to know that this is something that it can easily just rope them, and that's why the Nigeria data, well, in the Nigeria ecosystem, we've brought out some guidelines with regards to that. And we've also talked about there's a new guideline that we brought out, or a new regulation that we brought out, that also talks about having semi-annual audit reports. So what this does is that it helps you to, even before you get to your full audit cycle, you're able to look at the records of your processing activities, you're able to put them down. So what you just keep doing is that you keep populating that document. So it helps you for documentation, it helps you for compliance, it helps you to speak with the regulators in a confidence manner, knowing that you have all your documents on hand and ready.
Thank you very much, Adama, for what you've raised. And I think what you're saying exactly, some of the things that you'll be covering in our upcoming course. So you might also, if for those in the audience, I think a link also come up where you may register, so that we can also, in the courses that you're offering in DPO Africa Network, you may be able to learn about those pitfalls and how make sure we can really avoid it. So maybe I'll also just go in to Lindo at the moment and say, Lindo, you've been on the forefront of enforcement and legislation in Eswatini, and I know you've done a lot of advocacy work around the issue of data protection. What practical steps can DPOs take to prepare for audits and demonstrate compliance? Over to you, Lindo.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. So one of the key things that we usually tell our data protection officers, or just tell most of the organizations that we go to on a daily basis, raising awareness, is that compliance is a journey. So it's not just a once-off thing that you're just going to do it now and then you think you're just done with it. So one of the key practical steps that data protection officers can actually follow is the first one. As a data protection officer, it is important that the moment you get into the role of being a data protection officer, you just confirm if your organization is registered with the Data Protection Authority. I think most of the regulations or most of the acts around us, SADC actually have that clause to say that if you are processing personal data without notifying the authority, then you're going to be processing the personal data illegally. So it's important that all organizations ensure that they are registered with the data protection authorities. The second one that I can recommend to all data protection officers is basically coming up with a data inventory or coming up with a data mapping exercise where you are basically looking in your organization that what kind of personal data do you collect, who do you share it with, why are you collecting it? Because what we have seen is that if you do not know what kind of personal data you collect, then you won't even know what you protect. So most of the time, you think that as an organization, you process small personal data, but then when you go and you look at the definition of personal data, you actually realize that you are actually processing a lot of personal data. So the data mapping exercise can actually help you as an organization to see where you are with regards to the personal data you collect and what is the purpose for you to collect that personal data. And then the other one is basically keeping up-to-date policies and procedures and processes in the organization. So when you look at the different principles with regards to Data Protection Act, you see that almost every principle has some sort of a policy that it requires. So for example, there is the data storage limitation, which basically states that how long do you store personal data? Then you have to come up with the policy that defines what how long you keep personal data in your organization and how you even destroy that. And then the other key one that we recommend to all organizations is that if they are going to be having a new system or they are going to be introducing a new product that is basically processing a lot of personal data, it is recommended that they should be doing a data protection impact assessment that will assist them to identify the risk associated with that product and ensure that it does not violate data subjects' rights in the process. So those are the key ones that I can actually come up with now. And then the other one that I think is very key is that as a data protection officer, it is important that you involve yourself with all the regulators, updates, regulators, campaigns, and be part of the processes that they are actually doing on a daily basis so that you know what they are actually up to, so that you know how to ensure that there is compliance in your organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lindo, for your perspective on what you can talk about. And I think you're just sharing on how to be compliant as a DPO, because your duty is to advise on compliance to the controller so that they avoid the fines or avoid the pitfalls that comes with non-compliance in a data protection landscape. So maybe I'll just go back to Tsitsi and Daniel, and I just want to ask and say that maybe you can share with us your perspectives on effective compliance strategies as regulators, because you are been driving compliance in your I know Daniel was saying that no, we are a new regulator, but of course even as much you are new, there's something that we can learn from you, there's something that you can help us understand. So I'll start with Tsitsi just to talk about effective compliance strategies. So this is just a transitional question, so just in a minute or two before I then give you your other question that you can share about. So over to you, Tsitsi. Then Daniel, you can come in immediately after here.
Thank you so much. I'll be very quick here, considering that we don't have much time. I think for Zimbabwe, what we are working on right now is to share our compliance and enforcement strategy with industry. And I'm sure we should be able to do that by the 6th of June, because we had not really started in terms of enforcement, as well as issues to do with really following up on compliance as yet. But we do have a compliance roadmap, which we will be launching on the 6th of June. So industry players that are from Zimbabwe, just hang in there, and we will be giving out the authorities' enforcement priorities as well as compliance priorities. But just to give you in a nutshell, our approach to compliance is three-pronged. First and foremost, we are encouraging compliance and assisting compliance. And we have been doing this through not just training, but also giving support to the trained DPOs. We are going to their organizations to support them as they begin the training of management and boards. So that has been our approach as Potras. And the second layer of our enforcement and compliance strategy is that where necessary, we are going to be directing compliance. We see that you are not compliant, we will direct compliance, direct the organization to comply. And where they fail to comply, even where we have directed them to do so, we will then proceed to the third layer, where we are going to be issuing sanctions for non-compliance. But under the second layer, in terms of directing compliance, we also have 2 tiers or subcategories where an organization appreciates that indeed they were non-compliant. We will also offer a process where they can make good non-compliance. So this is our three-pronged approach to compliance as an institution. But in terms of also encouraging, what we have been doing is before we issue any guideline in Zimbabwe, so far we have issued 6. We have gone on a consultative process with the data protection officers, and they've been part of that process. So by the time you come up with a guideline as a regulator, it already has the buy-in of the data protection officers. And by the time it gets to the management and senior management, the data protection officers are well versed with the requirements of that particular guideline. So this has been our approach, and we will soon be embarking on another consultative process for 4 more sets of guidelines to guide industry. And in that process, that is our compliance strategy, where we take everybody up on board. We encourage compliance, and where there is a rebellious organization, that's when we will direct compliance. And if they still do not want to understand what the law requires, we will then proceed to issue sanctions as a last resort. So basically, I'll hold it there in a nutshell, considering that we don't have time. Maybe Kombo, if it's okay, in terms of the future, let me just mention that DPOs, please be alive to the AI tools that are being used in your organization. Once you are alive to those AI tools that are being used in your organization, you'll be able to come up with different policies and standard operating procedures of how staff members are supposed to be using those AI tools. And from a regulatory perspective, please be alive to the domicilium, or the where these AI tools are domiciled, so that you make sure you comply with sections 28 and 29 of our Act, which requires that you need to check whether there is an adequate level of protection in those countries where the AI tools are domiciled. Then it is also important for you for the future, or as we are in this AI era, to look at your data loss prevention systems to be extended to AI, because I'm sure you had not done that. In most of the organizations probably had not done that. So please check or revise your data loss prevention systems so that they are extended to AI portals and engines as well. And it's important that you, as a DPO, you assist the organization to sanitize data that will be uploaded on an AI tool as a data protection officer. So those are things you need to look at. Even in terms of your training, ensure that you have revised your training to include aspects to do with risks pertaining to AI and the use cases within the organization. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Daniel.
Yes, thank you. I'll also be brief. I think Adam and Linda were quite comprehensive in terms of the strategies that may be deployed to ensure effective compliance. So for us, I'll be speaking to DPOs that are starting from scratch in terms of compliance. So the first or critical thing that has to be done is do a gap analysis. So you look at your laws, what are the requirements in terms of compliance, and assess yourself. Where are we in terms of compliance? You identify the gaps and put in measures to address those particular gaps. Then you look at do your data mapping, and risk assessment. So you look at the information that you're collecting and processing. What kind of personal information is it? And what legal basis are you utilizing to collect and process that information? Because the legal basis is the starting point. So at all times, ensure that you have got a legal basis when collecting and processing the personal information. Then look at your privacy policies and privacy practices. For us, just like Zimbabwe, we have been focusing on the training aspect. In the initial phases, we are looking at training the DPOs and the data controllers and processors in terms of how they can comply with our new law. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for that. So I'll go back to Tsitsi, and I just want to ask like a question to say that how does Zimbabwe's national strategy empower DPOs, and what opportunities exist for DPOs to influence regulatory development in your in our jurisdiction, because they're from the same country? So over to you and Ms. Mariwo.
There are plenty of opportunities for DPOs. Let me start from there. It's not like the regulator is closing out DPOs. I'm sure DPOs in our jurisdiction can attest to the fact that when it comes to consultations on the key guidelines, like I indicated earlier on, we consult them and they are part of the process. In fact, they are part of the drafting process of the guidelines. So there is that opportunity to engage the regulator around various consultative processes when we come up with the tools that we use for regulation. Even when we came up with the regulations in 2024, we had a 12 months period for which we circulated the regulations and requested for input in terms of what they wanted to see in the regulations that were going to regulate our data protection landscape. And from the feedback, it was also clear that they were not coming to the party. A lot of citizens were not coming to the party, and rightly understood, maybe because our people were still not aware of data protection laws and so forth. But we will go on another process of looking at areas where we need to revise in our regulations and in our laws, and we will embark on that process as well to consult the different stakeholders. And I'm calling upon data protection officers in our ecosystem to effectively participate in that process when we open that opportunity for data protection officers. And when we call out for a consultation, please do participate in that consultative process. And in most cases, it's free. You just have to bring yourself to the venue and be part of the process and contribute to the process. But over and above that, I think in our strategy, our constitution requires that we consult stakeholders, but we also are dealing with issues to do with training. That's how the regulator is engaging with the DPOs. We are the source of the training, which has been commended for being structured, but not only structured, but for being sustainable in the sense that it feeds into an institution of higher learning. Unlike some jurisdictions that are crying or lamenting fly-by-night trainers on data protection, they train 2-3 sessions and they go underground. Ours has actually been commended for being structured as well as being sustainable in its approach. So those are some of the areas where we are engaging or facilitating a consultative approach, and we're part of the launch of the Association of Privacy Practitioners in Zimbabwe. We are supporting them in terms of making sure that we give all the necessary support that they need to be able to do their work as privacy practitioners in Zimbabwe. And our door is open. as a data protection authority. Those who have visited our offices, we are ready to have a meeting with any DPO when they face challenges. I'm sure in several cases of data breaches that have taken place in the country the last 12 months, the organizations have approached the authority and we have had meetings with them, remediation processes with them. So there is so much opportunity. Don't be afraid of the regulator. We are one regulator that is open to discussion, open to assist you to address your compliance journey. We are a regulator that is even ready to assist you in your training programs at institutional level, and we've been doing that as an authority. So that's what I would share for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I'll also then go quickly to Daniel and just quickly say, Daniel, I know you are just coming up from Nigeria, and someone just told me that you ate egusi soup. But anyway, the question is to say that Malawi is part of the growing network of African DPAs, and that's what you're coming from a conference on the African DPAs. And I just want to ask, how can DPOs leverage on cross-border collaboration, if any, to cross-border collaboration and harmonize efforts to streamline their compliance work? Is it possible for us to say that as Africans we can come together and harmonize and collaborate so that we can have compliance systems across countries? Take it over, Daniel.
Yes, thank you so much. And that is a very, very important question, in the sense that the physical borders, or the borders, I think, across nations are vanishing. So in terms of trade, it all requires personal data for it to be done across countries, and all the borders, I think, they are now vanishing. So it's critical for us to harmonize and learn from each other. For data protection, some jurisdictions have been doing it far more for a longer period of time than others. So we can always learn from mature regimes, or those that have been doing this for a very long period of time. So even if you look at the issues of cross-border data flows, there is a requirement in most jurisdictions that before you can export personal data, then that destination country should have an adequate level of protection in respect to that personal information. And what this entails is that there is the similarity in terms of principles that govern data protection. So harmonization is very critical in this regard. You have easy flow of data, and as DPOs, we can always learn in terms of how our friends are doing in the other jurisdictions. So we can learn in terms of the documentation that they're using, the practices that they are utilizing, so on and so forth. We can benchmark in terms of their legal instruments and the like. And also, is one critical thing is to join international networks like this one, where you have peer discussions, share experiences, and discuss questions which may be affecting us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And I like the perspective you're bringing about collaboration, because I was just going through the chats now and I see that Vusi Langa, he had asked a question that with data protection being relatively new within the African context, how do regulators bridge the gaps between the gaps that have been mentioned here? And I feel like your answer was an attempt to answered the question by Vusi. So I hope we'll obviously come to that question at the end of the session, but you did try to answer that. One of the ways that what regulators can do is to collaborate and standardize what is required of compliance. And actually, I think it should also be easier to make sure that a DPO should be able to move from one country to another, is to be able to practice, of course, subject to the labor laws. And I think some of the things that are being raised, that we are learning, that we see here coming, being raised by the panelists here, are some of them that are covered by the DPO Africa Network Foundation course, where I think you should just check it out. I think if you go on our website and you can, or also on LinkedIn, you can see the great reviews that are coming out from this course, and I really recommend that you take this course, because it's focused on publishing data portion, and targeted at the aspiring and current DPOs. And I do recommend this. So maybe I'll quickly move on to Adama. So we've been talking about the DPOs and everything else, but we just want to quickly talk about the future, especially the issues of AI in the sector-specific laws and skills, because most of the countries we still have we still have the data portion being regulated at a national level. So Adama, with new technologies like artificial intelligence and specific sector regulations emerging, what should DPOs be preparing for in the 1 to 2 years? And quickly, we are left with 3 minutes. So I'm sorry, I'm taking much time from some time from you, but just quickly answer this question, and then I also move on to Linda, who will then give us the last question before we get the final parting words from the other speakers. To you, Adama.
Okay, thank you, Allan, for the question. And I think the question is very germane, especially with the trends that we are seeing. Everyone is hopping on the AI trend. Everyone is moving with that vehicle. And it's something that we need to look out for as DPOs, because as Tsitsi said earlier on, you need to now start revising, the laws, the policies you already have that are existent. So the first thing you ought to do definitely is deepen your understanding of AI and data privacy implications. So how does data privacy intersect with AI, and how do you navigate that space? So you also need to understand the life cycle of AI. So from the creation, from the ideation, development, deployment, using, and all that. You need to be able to understand that life cycle of AI and how data privacy intersects with it. And this is beyond your organization. It's even in your sector. So if, let's say, you're a DPO in the health sector, you need to be able to understand how, data privacy intersects with health sector AI tools and all that. Another thing you need to understand, like in the next 1-2 years, is you have to familiarize yourself with the ethical principles of AI. And I think this is another thing that Tsitsi mentioned earlier. You need to be able to understand how you're going to be navigating that space ethically, because of course we always know that innovation always moves ahead. Everyone creates even before they actually think of things like privacy by design and privacy by default. So you need to be able to, as a DPO, understand how that is critical and ensure that your organization not necessarily backpedals, but infuse privacy from the beginning. DPIA must be a handy tool. It's a handy arsenal for every DPO. Knowing DPIA, knowing when it's triggered, knowing how to actually do the DPIA, knowing the kind of people or the kind of departments that you need to bring, and you need to involve while you're doing your DPIA. You also need to maintain detailed record, and this cannot be overemphasized. We are talking to regulators, and the truth is that once you want to show compliance to regulator, the things that you need to show them is documentation. Without documentation, you're just going to be speaking a whole lot of English, and then you're not going to be able to show or give evidence that actually you are on your compliance journey. Another thing that DPOs need to be looking out for in the couple of years, and even now too, is the ability to be able to track regulations both locally, regionally, and globally. This is very interesting because when you are talking about cross-border data transfer or cross-border data flows, you know that you're not just going to be talking about one country or one jurisdiction. So you need to be able to understand the legislations that go across the various jurisdictions that you're in. So reports like Tech Hive's report, Tech Policy, There's some things that come out. On LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very good resource for you to be able to track regulations. Tech Hive gives an annual report every year on AI trends in not just in Nigeria, in Africa, and of course globally. So these are the handy tools that you need to have. Then you need to review the simile and unsimile documents that are available to you. Tsitsi mentioned this earlier too, because you have privacy policies, privacy notices, and it's just there. You have to be able to infuse things like, AI and how it works with them. Then one other thing, you embed yourself in incident response planning, especially if you're a lawyer, because you just feel that, okay, no, that's now IT related. No. So if you're a DPO that is a legal person, you need to be able to understand your role in incident response planning, knowing what to tell them, how to mitigate risks, and also learning the business, because I've realized that many DPOs just think that their business is the business of it, or the role of a DPO is just to say this is good, this is bad, and all that. But you need to be able to transcend beyond that and show your organization the benefits of compliance while also making sure that their business is not impacted negatively. So you need to be able to show how we can even make more profits, even if we are going to be complying with data protection. And this is a very good place that DPOs need to look out for. As I said earlier on, documentation is everything, and you ensure one other thing, because of AI and the way it is, you need to be able to understand the mechanisms of consent. So consent mechanisms are very, very key. So for consent for children's data, you need to start looking at granular consent tracking across various platforms that your organizations are in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I could see that you are about to, start making arguments in court there. No, it's fine. I'll quickly then move on to Lindo. Lindo, in just 2 minutes. Guys, before, please, I know we are above, our time, we are 3 minutes out of our scheduled time, but please just stay on. We've got quiz that's just coming up after Lindo speaks, and the winner will get a free pass to attend the Data Foundation course for the May cohort. And so please just stay in there, and some few announcements at the end. We're about to wrap up. I think we should be able to wrap up by 10 past. We should be through. So Lindo, in a few words, I know you're an IT person, so obviously you'll be able to use a few words. Or what skills or mindsets will set DPOs apart from the operation? As the operation evolves in Eswatini in the region. So the question is that what skills or mindset will set DPOs apart as the data portion evolves in Eswatini in the region? Over to you, Lindo.
Okay, thank you so much. So one of the key things that we saying as a data protection authority is that a data protection officer is no more just a compliance checker. So it's important that all data protection officers are strategic, have a strategic mindset. They actually align the business towards the Data Protection Act as well. So they should actually embed the Data Protection Act in the business. So one of the key things that I've actually learned in the past few engagements I've actually had, or the trainings I've actually had, as a data protection officer, you are supposed to be basically curious. You should be willing to learn, because the data protection acts are just evolving every day. And each and every day we wake up, there is something new that is happening with regards to technology, which basically means that as data protection officers will be required to learn that. So it should be someone who has that mind to say that I am going to learn, who's going to be going on all the data protection laws to try and understand as well what are the other laws saying. Because one of the key things that I've seen is that what can happen in your country or what is happening in your organization has basically happened somewhere else. So it's important that you go out there and then you look at the other authorities as well. What are they doing? Don't just wait for your own authority, like you wait for Eswatini to see that they've actually issued consent guidelines. There are other regulators that are actually far ahead. So if you can do that and be proactive about your data protection journey, then you'll be able to face anything. So one of the key things that I've actually learned as well is that that when you are looking at any data protection issue, it's important that you create that triangle that will actually come up with to say that down there you're going to have the ISO standards. What are the ISO standards saying with regards to this issue? And then you come up to say that what is the Data Protection Act saying with regards to this issue? And then also you come up to that specific sector that you are actually in to identify how can you handle it with regards to data protection. So it's important that as a data protection officer, you invest in yourself as well to say that I want to learn something new each and every day and see what are the enforcement notices that are being issued by the different entities, by the different authorities as well, so that I'm able to apply it in my organization as well. Because they always say it's not a matter of if, but then it's a matter of when it happens. Because guaranteed, most of the time a data breach would happen, but then it's how you deal with it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lindo, for that. I mean, and then someone you might know them by the name Zimo from all the way from Zimbabwe just then sent me a shout and says like I should say hi to you online. So I think I just did that. Anyway, before we close off and before we announce the winners of the quiz, I just want to ask Tsitsi and Daniel just to give us any final thoughts on preparing for the future in a minute each, and then we'll move on to the we'll move on to address the Q&A, and then finally the winners of the quiz. So over to you, Daniel, and then Tsitsi on the final thoughts of prepare on the final thoughts on preparing for the future.
Thank you. So my final thoughts on this one is that AI is here. I would say it's not the future. It's here, and we must deal with it now because of the prevalence. So I will take it from a compliance perspective because the DPOs are looking at compliance. AI utilizes vast amounts of personal data, and as DPOs, we must be cautious in terms of compliance. Issues of data minimization are coming in. Purpose, reputation principles are coming in, and also the risks that are that AI brings to personal information. So the issues of risk assessments, data protection impact assessments are very key. So as we use AI, my parting words are that let's also put compliance at the forefront. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll move on to Tsitsi for your final words, parting words on preparing for the future.
Okay, thank you. Just to say to the DPOs, I think as you work, I know that a lot of the DPOs are new in this field or in their roles. It's critical that you come up with a robust compliance management framework on data protection and try to chew bit by bit. So have a short-term action plan, a medium to long-term action plan, which you are able to implement and pat yourself on the back for the successes and wins that you get from every action plan that you come up with from the compliance management framework itself. Over and above that, it is also important for you to appreciate that as we move forward on this compliance journey, you are not just responsible for protecting the PII, but to be constantly changing the mindset and the culture within the organization. So that takes a lot of soft skills that you need to be learning on the go. Unfortunately, most DPOs, like the Data Protection Authority of Zimbabwe, are really building the ship while sailing it. Not all the conditions were in place for them to take up this role, and some are still struggling from a resource perspective and even skills gap perspective. But we are saying as you sail the ship, just take it one day at a time, be structured in your approach, particularly your compliance management framework is critical, and have short-term and long-term plans that you can effectively implement and see those wins, and you continue being encouraged in your journey. Those will be my parting words.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to the quiz. We'll now move on to the quiz. I'm sure they just check on the screen. There's quiz that's coming up there, and then we're quickly going to do the Q&A. So the quiz there is that what does S in the acronym ARISE stand for? In the DPO Africa Network core values, what does the S in the acronym ARISE stand for in the DPO Africa Network core values? So A, the solidarity, B, the service, C, the security, D, the sustainability. So the poll there is poll 2 in the chat box. So you just quickly click the what you want, and then we'll answer there. All right, the quiz is it's done. So the on the leaders board we had Olena Botha. She answered, they answered. I don't. They answered in 3.71 seconds, and then there was Prince Johnny Jr., who answered in 4.63 seconds, and then Kudzai Sengwe, who answered correctly in 5.9 seconds. So those are the winner obviously will be Olena, and most of them others have got the question very correctly. So obviously that means Olena, you're going to get a free you're going to get a free pass for the Data Portion Foundation course for the May cohort. So we'll be in touch with you after the session. So just quickly to quickly address the questions that we had in the chat. So the first question that came up through was the question that came from Fusi, was asking what are regulators doing to address the gaps that have been raised and challenged. And then there's another question that came from Chatenda, where you was asking about is there a library, or is there a source whereby DPOs from the continent can go and pick on things to use that are standardized, that also the authorities themselves from any jurisdiction should be able to accept. And then Nyasha Kuona asked, what do our regulators recommend in dealing with privacy, where organizations are increasingly relying on employees' personal gadgets, particularly phones and apps, particularly WhatsApp, for work-related communication? Tatinda, I've already talked about your question. I talked about Lindo's question. So I think those are the questions that I see in the chat for now. So I'll just give the panelists anyone to tackle any other question that you just want to tackle. Remember, we are out of time. So the three questions that we have, the gaps, Daniel partly touched on that question. And then the other question that we have was to talk about Tatinda's question, that is there a source where we can find standardized information? And then Nyasha is like, what do we do when employers ask us to use personal gadgets for work? Doesn't that infringe on our privacy? So panelists, feel free to jump in at any question that you want to tackle, and then we move, because we are out of time. We are 14 minutes after our finishing time. So anyone, just to unmute the mic and quickly answer any question, then we'll give others a chance.
Yes, I think I would like to answer Nyasha's question. My advice and recommendation is that let's separate the gadgets, work-related gadget and personal gadget. Because I think if you are aware, many work policies, when they give you a gadget for work, it's the company's gadget, and they can access it at any time. So if you mix personal information and together with work information, that may pose a challenge as regards your personal information there. So my advice and recommendation is that let's separate work gadgets and personal gadgets. That way we can safeguard our personal information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. So we've got a question from Tatenda. Anyone of the panelists wants to tackle that one? Or the question from Fusi, who also wants to tackle that? What do regulators do to address the challenges that are being raised here?
Thank you, Kombo. I just wanted to come in on the question regarding the efforts being made by regulators to address particularly the cross-border related challenges.
Okay.
And I just want to say, in just ended NADPA meeting, there was one of the resolutions was to come up with a continental frameworks that will facilitate trade or digital trade, and also deal with issues to do with data privacy at a continental level. So Nigeria is actually leading the harmonization working group at the continental level that is within NADPA framework. And we are going to be participating now that we are a member of NADPA. And there is a lot of work also that has been done by South Africa, the information regulator, around issues to do with cross-border transfer, a harmonized framework that will be released soon at NADPA level, but also maybe at SADC level. So there are efforts, there are working groups that are working on making sure that at continental level, we have sort of a harmonized framework, starting with, of course, cross-border data transfers. Thank you.
All right, so I think that also then goes on to answer the question by Tatenda, whereby if we are going to be having harmonized working groups at NADPA level, it means eventually we'll get to a point where we have a content library, because each working group will come up with standards that are accepted. I think that's the same concept with the GPA, whereby working groups come up with standardized documents, libraries, whereby DPOs can go and come up with information. So I think you've tackled two questions in one answer. So we'll quickly move on to announcements that we have. That we have. I'll just wait for the some of the screen to show some of the announcement that we want. So I mentioned about the survey earlier on, that we are, if you're an aspiring DPO or a private professional, please check out the survey. That will also help us as DPO Africa Network to be able to come up with events and webinars and resources that can also help us protect you. And then if you are you also have a practicing DPO, there's a survey for you. You can just scan the QR code. As you can see, the codes are on the screen. So just scan the one that you want to participate in. And on the 23rd of May at 5 p.m. West African time, we have our first office hour with Amakai Bechi. If you have questions on engaging on the network, if the course, please drop in your Google Meet info, and then she will be able to connect you with Amakai Bechi for the office hour that we have. So there's a Google, the Google Meet link will also be sent in the chat box. And then there's going on the 30th of May, there's going to be the volunteer check-in. There's going to be a volunteer meeting that will do. So there's a save a date there. Then you also obviously get a link to join in the volunteer check-in meeting. Or for those volunteers who would want to volunteer the network or with the DPO Africa Network, you can also drop out your details in the chat box, and we'll be able to communicate with you and see on how best you can do that. And then I've been talking about the Data Protection Foundation course, which will begin on the 5th of June, and it's a 3-day course. You can contact info@dpoafrica.net on more details, or a link again was posted earlier on by Amaka in the chat box. So you can check on that link and you see. And then the next webinar that we're going to have is going to be on the 13th of June, and already our panelists are ready. And then it will be the advocates in the practice. So you're going to see the more details in the flyer. So just keep on checking our LinkedIn handle for more and more information. And then there will be a data protection governance course, which will be launched on June 17th, and another volunteer check-in course, check-in meeting, which will be on June 28th to wrap up the second quarter as a check-in call. Then also, if you go on the website, and I think on the screen we have flooded our roadmap, We are, as you can see, we're on track with our projections for the year, and we are set to launch our next course for data protection governance in June. This builds on the Data Protection Foundation course. So basically, that was it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining and taking time to be with us. As you can see, the roadmap is there and everything else is there on the screen. And we had more than 103 participants joining this meeting from across from across the continent. Although some are joining in, I saw someone from joining in from India. I think it's Dr. Mugauri. I saw someone joining from the UK. I saw Nigeria. I saw Botswana. I saw Zimbabwe. I saw Eswatini, Malawi, South Africa, Gambia, Uganda. So there were so many countries represented. If I did mention your country, please, it's not like I'm segregating. I just didn't get to mention your country. But thank you so much for staying out all the way. It was supposed to be an hour session, but ended up dragging to 1 hour and 21 minutes. But we do thank you so much for taking time to be with us. And if you've got many questions, you reach out at info@dpoafrica.net, and we'll be able to get in touch with you and ask and answer some questions while you are waiting for the office hour. So until next time, this brings us to the end of our session. Thank you very much for your attention and for participating in the session. So you can just drop off in the chat box your last words that you want the other DPOs to know about something. Just say something, in the chat box as you before you leave. And we thank you so much.